Hayden Narducci has joined me today to go over some of the hottest draft prospects for the 2025 season. Now, how this is going to roll, I came up with an idea earlier today that we're going to make a best 18 of all of the draft prospects in the country, going from the defensive line to the forward line and everything in between. So, Hayden, are you ready to do this, mate?
I am. I've got the notes in. There's a lot of question marks out there. We were talking a little bit before this, and there's a few question marks in certain positions, but it's a good draft at the top end. So, there's probably a whole nother 18 I've got here of blokes that have missed out that through this chat, I could probably have my mind changed pretty easily. But I'm excited to hear your thoughts on it because I think it's a pretty open draft at this point. So it'd be nice to hear the opinion of someone else, especially someone who knows a lot more about the Vic boys than I do.
Oh, vice versa, back at you, mate, because I don't know that much about the WA guys. So I think we'll get a little bit of like difference there, a bit of contrast in the players. So you mentioned there that you've got a few question marks, and I think the biggest question marks for me are around these key defenders because I don't feel like there's not a lot of fully genuine size key defenders. I think there's a lot of like hybridy type defenders, a lot of distributors here. The three that I've gone with as what you would call kind of genuine key defenders here. I've shoehorned a couple of players in, but I think the main one that we're probably both going to have here is Cody Curtin, right?
See, I've got him up forward because he's been kicking goals. He's up forward. I wanted him as key back. We talked about doing this a couple of weeks ago, and I had him down back initially. I've got a sheet of paper here. I'll block everyone else out, and you can see Cody Curtin's there at full back, and I had to scrap that one out. He's up for the forward line now. Spoiler alert, but he's kicked 5 goals on the weekend. You can't put that man down back, can you?
Yeah, I know. I have heard like a lot of WA content creators talking about this, the fact that he's moved forward, but I don't know. I had to put him in the defensive line just due to the fact that we just don't have those genuine kind of lockdown types, those gorilla key defenders. So I really wanted to have him in mind. Yeah, and I feel like the others I've had to shoehorn in a little bit here. I've gone as my kind of second fully key defensive post here that can take like a big key position forward. I've gone with Jasper Hay from Tasmania. And I know that is a little bit disingenuous because he genuinely plays, like most of the time he's playing in the ruck, and early this season so far he's played in the forward line for Tassie. But there are rumours that recruiters want to see him play as a key defender. So I've snuck him in. He's my second key defender. Who have you got?
That's fair enough. Well, this is where I've got 3 of my 5 question marks all over the key defenders. There's a few names there of guys who I think you definitely want to see more of. Like we said, there's sort of those medium-sized, slightly undersized guys. There's that Eastern Rangers pair, Xavier Taylor, Andrew Barker, who I know are both in the Vic Metro state squad in terms of that first initial squad. Harry Dean from the Bushies, Carlton father-son. Again, a little bit of an undersized one who could probably go in there. And someone I haven't seen anything of, but his name's popped up a little bit in the preseason, Max Hudson, as someone from the Gold Coast Suns who maybe for the Allies could go down back. Probably like you, there's going to be a little bit of shoehorning, and I'm probably going to shoehorn Kalani White in there. Because it considers himself more of a ruck forward, but I know he can go back. You probably just it's sort of like you've done with Hale, with Curtin as well. It's someone who's capable of playing across all 3/3 as a rucker forward and, key defender. So I've put him in there. I've gone Andrew Barker. From everything I've heard of the Vic boys, he seems to be probably one of the most trustworthy, but also it's been 2 rounds.
To be honest, I'm probably not when it comes to key defenders specifically, which we've started this video with, I'm not really ready to kind of plant my flag in the ground personally.
We've started really tough. We've started with the absolute toughest position to pick. So
100%. So let's do this. I've got an idea. We can kind of try to build this team, and we have to decide on 3 players between us here. Yeah. So for me, I'm pretty sold on like Cody Curtin as a key defender. Is that one? Is that a hill you want to die on, or?
It's tough because I think for WA, there's probably only maybe 1 or 2 other guys that can go forward. There aren't really many that can go back. So I wouldn't be surprised if we see him up forward for most of the year. I'm happy to put Jasper Hay in there. I think if he's someone that you hear and recruiters want to see down back, allies need those key defenders. They've got their key forwards, they've got their ruck. I assume Kalani White's probably going to be doing a lot of the ruck work for him and maybe flexing down back with Hay going forward, or even Isaac Waller through the ruck and Hay can go down back. It's it's someone that I think I'm willing to put. Could look silly if he never even gets that chance down back, but
Yeah,
I
it's
think,
true. I do feel like he's one of those players. He's super athletic. He's maybe like a little bit of a messier player with ball in hand, Jasper Hay, and he's a really
yeah,
tenacious, sort of dogged player. So I feel like as a defender, it sort of almost suits his personality as a player a little bit. So it kind of
yeah.
works. I think we'll see him there at some point, just at least to give him a bit of a trial, particularly if he's not hitting the scoreboard. Tassie have had it pretty tough to start the season. So if they're kind of losing big, the ball's down there a lot, I can see him getting swung down there.
Yeah, especially with it seems like they're really trying to get Ollie Dean in the mid-season draft to go, and your key forwards are stacked, so it probably is best for his draft chances. So I'm happy with Hay. I'll give you Curtin as well. I think I'm happy to put Curtin down back. He's versatile, and I think it speaks. As much as it speaks to the lack of depth of key defenders in this draft, it also speaks to the versatility and talent of Curtin to be able to play that elite key defender or an elite key forward. And I wouldn't be surprised if he pinch hits in the ruck over the course of this season at some stage, maybe goes through the middle like his brother. So I'm happy to put Curtin in there. From there, it is tough. Kalani White's the one that springs to mind. I don't really know if I have a spot for him anywhere else in this side, and I think he's too good not to be in it. But at the same time, it's
Yeah.
a bit of a weird key defensive trio to go with three big boys that none of them are really key defenders.
I was going to say that we're pretty much all at around the 200 centimeter mark at that point. The
Yeah,
one that I like as the third tall, the one that's pretty athletic, he moves really well and does a little bit of distributing as well. He kind of likes to glide across and take those intercept marks. It's Xavier Taylor from the Eastern Rangers. I was
yeah,
really
okay.
impressed with his game at the weekend. He played really well, and I don't know. I guess he gives you a little bit of an offensive threat as well. Where he sort of sits in the overall draft board, it's kind of hard to tell at this point, but he'd probably be a nice one. You could get in there, but I'd be happy to concede Kalani to you if you want to get him in the team.
No, I'm happy with that. I think Taylor's a good shout. It is a very tall defensive trio as it stands.
We need to get some shorter guys in there. We need to
We
get some
do.
movement. All right, so we've gone there with Cody Curtin, with Jasper Hay, and with Xavier Taylor for the key position defenders. It's a bit makeshift. I think ultimately a lot more water has to go under the bridge for us to get a handle on these key defenders because they're still coming through, right?
There's
We've still
not
got a bit
really
of
much exposure of these key backs right now. It's going to be a lot of tall guys who are going to have to show something this year because we've got our rucks, we've got our key forwards. There's a lot of chances
100%.
out there if someone's willing to go down back.
Yeah, exactly. And I reckon we'll see teams experimenting with that to try to get some project players into the lineup. Small defenders here. So we've got to try and I feel like this is where we might start to get a few differences
Yeah,
come
okay.
into the game from the small defenders onwards. So this is probably the part of the video that gets a little bit interesting.
I feel
I've
like
gone
two of
with,
these guys probably have to be the same for us. Sorry to cut you off, but I feel like two of these guys, in my head, stand out well above everyone.
I
In
think
my
it
head, at
depends though,
least.
because I reckon there's a
Yeah.
guy maybe you've got here that I've got somewhere else in the team.
Okay, yeah, I feel like there's definitely, I'm looking at that name right now and I could see that being the case. You tell me
What's
though, go ahead.
were you talking about Zeke Uland?
I was talking about Zeke Uland because I don't know if I can fit him in that midfield right now.
I got him somewhere else. Spoiler
Ooh.
alert, it's
Yeah,
not the
okay.
midfield.
Okay, tell me your defenders. Tell me your defenders.
All right. So I've got Josh Lindsay.
Yep.
I think most people sort of have an idea on who Josh Lindsay is at this time. He's a
Yeah.
metronomic sort of halfback distributor. He's around 180 centimeters, Geelong Falcons boy. Plays pretty much predominantly through the midfield for them just because he's such a gun player and probably their best player on the park at the moment. But he sort of, I think at the top level, he probably fits in as either a winger, a halfback distributor. He kicks the ball a little bit similar to someone like an Errol Goulden, I want to say.
Yeah.
Just some of the traits where he can kind of kick that cross-body kick. He can kick on the run. Good meters game player, good runner, all of that sort of stuff. So I've got him in there. I've got Sam, and I'm probably going to stuff up the pronunciation here. I've got Sam Griller,
Yep.
I want to say.
I think it's I've literally been editing a video with him right now. I believe it's Griller.
Grill.
Grill?
They call him Griller on the field.
Yeah.
And I called him in a video. I tried to get a bit cute with it, and I went Grillich. I think I've just
Yeah.
added a few too many
I
sounds
believe
into
it's
that.
not that, but I've just been editing this video and when I introduce him, it's the one time I say it, and this was months ago, I must have asked him how to pronounce it ahead of time, and I think it was Griller.
Griller.
but no,
Okay,
Krill.
so
No, I've got no clue. Every time I
we'll,
say it, I
we'll,
get less of an idea.
the
Sam
players
G.
call it. Yeah, yeah. Sam G,
Yeah.
182 centimeters. Now he's going to give you, compared to Lindsay, sort of similar type players in the fact that they're smaller distributor halfback flankers, but this guy's got a little bit more punch. Probably doesn't have the foot skills of a Josh Lindsay, but he gives you that bite and he can come into the midfield too. He's a little bit taller at, I think, 183 centimeters.
Yeah,
Is a
about
griller. So
that.
I think, yeah, he moves really well. He's got that little bit of a step on him as well. So I think his long-term progression for me is probably midfield. But at this point in building this early team, I think you got to slot him in across half back for me. Gives you that pace. And then the last one I've gone with as a sort of distributor / interceptor and someone that can probably lock down a bit more is a Lockie Carmichael, Sydney Academy. I like him he's only 180, but he's really good in the air.
Yeah, I think Lindsay Carmichael I really like. I've got Zeke Hewland in there at halfback just because I'm not really sure where I do put him. He's one of the most talented players in this draft
Yeah.
by so far. He's pretty undersized for midfield or halfback, but I think we know, especially we've seen in a lot of drafts, players like Errol Goulden, players like Darcy Jones, who will probably go into the midfield at a later date. Those undersized players are becoming a little bit more popular again. I feel like they're regaining a popularity in the league that they probably lost for a few years there in the late 2010s. But I've got him down there. I've got Luke Candy from South Australia as an option. I think there was probably a little part of me that just felt disrespectful to South Australia because I don't have many SA boys in here. I don't think I have any others, maybe one other, which we'll probably get to. But it's tough because you hear so many good things coming out of South Australia, but when you're outside of the state, it's a hard league to keep up with until the
Yeah.
champs. There's no one really speaking out for South Australia this year. So he's someone I know can play that sort of medium defender halfback role that I've got in there. But yeah, it's a tough one. I know Benny wronged it as well. Slightly slow start to the season, but is a pretty well rated one.
Just back on Luke Candy, like I think he came on the radar for me in that futures game,
Yeah.
right, last year, and like he used the ball so well. He had a bit of the Josh Lindsay's about him, just the way that he moved and sort of got around on that sort of half back line. So I reckon he's a really good shout. And you're spot on with the South Australian thing because I think I look back at last year's draft and you were over here in Victoria at that time and we sort of got to
Yeah.
the draft night and there were just a couple of names like that first round. You had like a Ned Bowman, a Cody
Yeah.
Angove, just guys that we probably should have been across. But if you're not watching that SANFL footy constantly, these guys can just slip under the cracks. And then they step up to the national team, or sorry, the state teams for the national championships. And they're a little bit, I don't know, maybe they're not quite at that same level at that moment. And then they can just sort of develop a little bit later in the season.
Yeah, well, it's also, I think for a lot of those guys, because they play a sort of secondary role in their state or, their state's
Yep.
underperforming and they're more auxiliary players than they are players who are going to stand up. Like both of those players, Bowman's a small forward, Angove winger. They're outside players. They sort of need their team to be playing well for them to play well a little bit. Like they're not really guys who are going to regularly stand up when their team's not performing. So it is hard when in the state champs you don't see WA or South Australia perform, especially last year with such a big dominance. But I think we'll see that this year. I think Lindsay's a lock in there. I'm really happy with that.
Yep.
I'm happy to talk about Ezekiel and elsewhere and put Lockie Carmichael in there. And I think for a bit of love for the South Australians, I think Luke Candy should probably slot in there.
You want Candy in?
I want Candy. I want a bit of Candy time. Grill's a great shout. I've heard really good things about him coming out of Victoria. He's someone who didn't have I think the highest profile coming into it, but now off the back of a pre-season and first couple rounds, there's a lot of talk. I haven't seen any even play his footy, but it's one of those things where if I guess you're surrounded by the right circles, you hear murmurs about blokes, and then a month later, all of a sudden they're top 30 players pretty quickly.
Yeah, 100%. And he's sort of his first couple of rounds, like hitting the scoreboard, playing as a, between a sort of halfback flanker and a centre bounce midfielder, but someone that's probably pushing up the ground a little bit, I feel, this season.
Yeah.
And he had a bit of damage to his game, so I reckon he'll be in and around. But I'm happy to go with Candy, particularly I'd say he's probably a more sort of like a specialist halfback flanker, like with his disposal, whereas
Yeah.
Grealish is more of a just run and gun, kind of gives you that pace off the back half. So they're kind of different types in a way. I'd say Candy's more in the mold of that, like a Josh Lindsay type, where they're sort of really comfortable with the ball, like look a bit cultured on the ball, even with the way that
Yeah.
they use it, to use a kind of soccer reference there that you
Yeah.
love, Hayden. So what do we go with? We went with Lindsay, we went with Carmichael, and with Candy. Now, Hayden, this is
Yes.
probably the main part of the episode, the midfielders. Everybody wants to know about the midfielders. They're the guys that
Yeah.
come into the AFL and they dominate straight away. We've seen Sam Lawler, Murphy Reed, Sid Draper, all of these guys come into the AFL and dominate. Who is in your midfield? Who are the best midfielders in the 2025 draft crop?
It's so tough to narrow it down to three. There's two guys I'm pretty hammer and tongs that I want. There's one guy I left out here who I feel like you're going to say, and is probably going to end up in there. My two that I'm pretty big on, Fred Rodriguez, West Australian, made his league debut this week for South Fremantle. It was a very modest performance, 6 touches and a goal. It is different in the waffle. You very rarely see these blokes coming in and playing a primary role and doing really good. Whereas you think of Jagger Smith when he goes to Carlton for the VFL or Richmond in the VFL and just racks up touches and touches. He's playing that predominant midfield role, whereas these guys, they're coming in and they're just sort of playing a forward pocket. They're just getting a little bit of exposure to start. But he's so composed. He's so clean. He looks like he's got so much time in the ball. He can kick on either foot just as clean. There's a lot of Sam Mitchell comparisons, and I think WA, a lot of people don't really see, I guess, what we have to compare WA to, which is, the Victorians, the South Australians, the Allies boys. So we do get carried away a lot with the hype on players, and there's a little bit of me that's worried that maybe that's happening with Fred, but I do think he could be one of the best midfielders in this competition. Dan
It's
Annabelle's
an
another
interesting
one as well. Yeah.
Oh, okay. I just wanted to come in on Fred there for a second.
Yeah.
Like there has been a lot of hype here as well. I feel like just across the all the content creators in the draft community. Like I think he's a very good player. I probably haven't seen maybe the levels. Like, I've seen even a few content creators have him as like the number one.
Yeah,
They could see
okay.
him as being like the number one overall pick and stuff like that. And I'm probably not at that stage yet. I probably at this
Yeah.
stage just don't necessarily see all of the damage that I'm hearing from some of the other people. But obviously we're 2 games into a season. This is
It's
very
tough.
early days. We've got the academy stuff to go. We've got the national championships, which are going to tell a large part of the story. But I'm probably not I'm not there yet as far as a top midfield spot. But we're probably going to have to fight out. I know on my list here, I'm going to have one guy that you definitely don't have,
Okay.
who's a real up and comer here in the Coates League. So you mentioned who was your second pick there after Fred?
Dan Annabelle, just I'll keep this one a bit shorter because I think for the WA boys, I have so much I want to say because there's a lot of patriotism there. But Dan Annabelle, it's accumulation. He's a contested beast. He's got that elite work rate. Like those 3 things where you've got that and you are just going to be one of the top midfielders if you can do those things and do them well. Consistently, which he does. I think he is going to be one of those top midfielders and probably someone that, as I think all the Northern Academies are probably going to come under a bit of fire at the end of this season with how stacked they all are, except GWS, the poor blokes. But I think Dan Annabelle is one of the players that people are going to pinpoint as an example of why the Northern Academies are maybe, and all the academies are maybe a little bit too overpowered for certain clubs. Because when Brisbane are going and getting Jasper Fletcher, the Ashcrofts, Sam Marshall, Dan Annabelle in the span of 3 drafts, bit ridiculous.
Yeah, 100%. I don't have Daniel Annabelle in my team, but I absolutely toyed with it just because of like you kind of mentioned there, he's such a good all-round midfielder. He's got that accumulation factor. And my midfield, like I tend to go a little bit with these. I try to go really high upside
Yeah,
with my
I've gone
midfields.
sort of what I've put here. I think is it like an 18 that I'd want to see play. So
But
that's
yeah, yeah.
it is strange. And that other mid, this was the hardest one because, there's Durs, there's Sharp, there's Greaves. Only's had a
Did you
pretty slow
not
start to the season.
did
But
you not go did you not go sharp?
I went Dursma. Yeah, I know. Sharp.
Ooh.
And I'm saying it now, and I think probably a bit silly. But Dersman's just so high upside, and I was thinking about putting him on halfback. I wouldn't be against putting him on a wing, but I just felt like I had to say him as a midfielder because I think he's the guy you talk about upside. He probably is number one for me for upside as an inside mid. Um, there's versatility for him to play anywhere, but what he does as his best is everything very well. He hits the scoreboard. He can take marks. He's athletic. If he puts on a bit of size, he's going to have a really good frame for the midfield as well. So there's a lot of really exciting aspects for him. And in my head right now, he's probably the favourite for pick one. There's a couple guys who are up there, but I've pretty much said everything there is to say on Willem without glazing him too much. He's just such a talented footballer, and I think the upside on him is astronomical. And those are the kind of players you look at. Sam Lawler, he didn't have the biggest output, but clubs know what he's capable of, and I think that's what dares me. You can't really take him out of that midfield.
I couldn't agree more. And he is definitely straight in my midfield. I think he is if he has the midfield performances like he had in round one, where he has 36 touches, he's inside out, he's doing those clean pickups off his toes and generating 5-6 shots at goal. He's going to be the walk up number one pick by halfway through the season if it continues. So I've got to have him in the midfield. And
Yeah.
I think as a bit of a prototype of what he's like, you can probably look at a player like a Will Day. He's that type of athlete that can actually run out of stoppage, give you those really, really good entries as well. So I love him as a player.
Yeah, he's a real exciting one. But yeah, that wraps me. Durs, Rodriguez, Annabelle. From the sounds of it, you've got two different names there, though.
Yeah, I do. So Dersma's in there. So we agree on that one.
Yeah.
We absolutely agree on that one. I've got Dyson Sharp. Shout out to the SA boys again.
That's absolutely fair enough.
And I don't have, again, he's another one that's been put on a lot of lists as like the outright number one pick. I love his physicality. I reckon of all of the big bodied mids in this draft, he stands above them all. He has a little bit more speed in his game, so he's got that power to be able to break out of the stoppage. I think he's probably the one that can play the best forward game as well. Like if he gets in the front half, he can win a contest inside forward 50. So he's got that ability to be able to rotate through multiple positions, win contest, and kind of just dominate his opponent. I reckon he's a real nightmare there because he's good overhead as well, which we've seen with a few of the other big-bodied mids, maybe not as good when they get kind of left alone one-on-one to be able to take marks overhead. So I think Sharp's kind of perfect there. And along with Dersma, you get two mids with a lot of height, which gives you a lot of reach in at the stoppages, but you also get kind of two different body types, two different athletic types. One's sort of more power-based, while the other one's a little bit more of a smoother mover as well.
Yeah.
So I've gone with him. And the third one is a real wild card, a real up-and-comer. He sort of asserted himself as probably the best midfielder at the Sandringham Dragons this season. And we know the talent that they can pump out on a regular basis for drafts. I've gone with Rory Wright. Do you know this guy?
Not much. No, I know the name, but to put in the best 18's a big jump.
It's a big call. I was so excited by his game at the weekend. He kicked a really, really crucial goal in the last quarter where he won a massive centre clearance when the game was on the line against Eastern. If you caught that game, it went down to a goal finish. It was basically a goal on the siren type of a grandstand finish. But he was able to sort of win a massive contest in the middle of the ground, and then he pushed forward, got on the end of a handball receive, and just like penetrated a goal from around the 50 arc. So he's at the moment, the thing that's impressing me the most about him, it's his contest work on the inside. He's a reasonably big body. He's about like the mid 180, so he's around 184 centimeter, a pretty solid body in there. But the thing that's impressing me the most about him is he's he's so good by foot. He's just able to spray the ball around the park. He gets it forward pretty much. He's a big kicker, so he's a 20 disposal guy, 16 kicks, 4 handballs, that sort of a game. And he seems to be regularly hitting the scoreboard at the moment. So I just see him as a mid that probably started from nowhere. He's not in the AFL Academy side or anything like that. I'm not even sure if he's in the Vic Metro side.
I don't think he was. But no.
So he's just having really big moments in games, being really impactful. And I just think he's a big watch for this season. And I'm happy to put him in here off what I've seen so far.
Yeah, well, I mean, I've seen nothing of him, and that's such a that was absolutely one I didn't think you'd say at all. You said you had a bolter in there. That surprised
He
me.
that was him. So who will we
Yeah,
get? We've got to decide here now. So that's going to be a hard one for you to agree on.
yeah, it is. I don't think I can. I'm really excited that you've said that because it's a bit rogue, it's a bit funky, and I feel like there's got to be an honourable mentions list for when we make a post about this because I'd love to have his name in there. Just if that goes off, that's one of the greatest calls of all time from you this early in the season. But I'm happy to put Sharp in there. I think
Yeah.
Sharp's a very obvious one for me that I didn't put him in there, and I thought, what am I doing here? But probably there was just a bit of love elsewhere. I think for me, Rodriguez or Annabelle have to be that third one, and it's tough to pick between the two. Some people rate them both top five. Everyone rates them differently.
At this stage, where would I be if I was ranking those guys in an open draft right now? I think I think I'm Annabelle.
Yeah, okay.
Is
It just
that
hurts me so much to leave. I think it's patriotism that makes me hurt to leave Rodriguez out.
you know what though? I think I had Rory Wright, and one
Yeah,
of the reasons that I had him in at that position is he's such a beautiful kick of the football. He's
yeah,
going to be able to control games for you. And he was sort of in there as that accumulator, which
yeah,
Daniel Annabelle sort of is. The one thing Fred Rodriguez, the thing that people talk about him the most with him is his kicking skills. So I'd be
yeah,
happy to go there straight swap. We've brought Dyson Sharp in. We go Rory Wright out. We go Fred Rodriguez in. You get your
yeah,
WA boy. And
yeah,
and it's a 50-50. Annabelle and Rodriguez to me at the moment are probably similar type players in that they can, pick up plenty of possessions and just sort of control the game for you.
yeah. I think it's been made very easy, much easier off the back of a lot of those top guys having slow starts in their first two rounds of the Talent League. I think that's
For
made things
sure.
a lot easier. And 2 weeks from now, this could look silly if there isn't an Ollie Greaves in there if he starts great, or if Riley Onley starts tearing up, or the academy boys come in and someone like Bo Adensall starts going off, or Max King's in the midfield doing ridiculous things. But yeah,
The
I'm
one
happy.
thing though, the one thing I didn't want to do there, Hayden, was the fact that I didn't want to have like Dyson Sharp as he's a pretty big bodied mid.
Yeah,
Riley Onley, um, who did you mention then?
Ollie
Greaves.
Greaves. Yeah,
Greaves, yeah. Yeah, I didn't want to have just a fully, a giant midfield. I
yeah.
wanted to have a little bit of light and shade in there.
I'm happy with what we've done. I think Dersma, Rodriguez, Sharp, pretty good. Could easily finish the top three mids. Dersma's the one where you could probably put him in any other position if you want to be a little cheeky. But if we're doing best 18, you'd want him to be starting in that midfield if you want your best midfield three.
100%. And what have you done on the wings?
Wings, I've got one question mark, but I've got Max King from Sydney in there. I've heard really
Ooh,
good things about. He's tall. He's got those clean hands. He's really quick. Like he's got that sharp burst. I think for the New South Wales ACT testing, he finished second or third in the 20-meter sprint. Like he's sharp. He's quick. He's pretty tall. I think he's 191, 192. So
yep.
as a winger, that's what people are liking to see. I wouldn't be surprised if we start seeing him as more of a midfielder, especially for the Swans Academy. But he's someone I've got there on that wing. There's a lot of genuine wingers in this draft, which I do like. Probably guys we'll see playing more variant roles as the season goes on, but guys who do seem to be genuine wingers coming in. So I've got him. I've got a few names, but I've got a question mark there. So I'd like to see who you have listed for now.
Okay, so I've got Max King in the side. I've got him somewhere else. Spoiler
Okay.
alert.
Yeah, right. Okay.
Sue me.
Yeah.
But I've probably got there the same, in a way, the same type of player, like a very athletic player and someone that gives you that overhead. I think it's important if you have two wingers these days in a team that one of them has an overhead game and then
Yeah.
one of them's probably going to hurt you really badly by foot. So I've gone with Xavier Bammett from the Sandringham Dragons.
Yeah.
He has
Okay.
had a very quiet start to the season, I'd have to say. I played a little bit of centre bounce midfield. He's played a little bit of sort of, high half forward coming up to contest, a little bit of wing. So he's not exactly primary in that position, but he's got a massive tank, this guy. I think he went under 6 minutes for the 2K time trial. So he can run and he's got a lot of power in his game. There was a goal that he kicked in round one against the Jets where he burst out of stoppage, kick the goal from outside 50, like a lot of penetration in his game. So he's a real modern player from an athletic profile point of view. But I think he's a really good footballer as well. And he's kind of shown that when he's gone into the midfield at times that he can, he's got good hands to be able to release teammates, get other players into the game and that sort of thing. So I like him overall. Slow start to the season, so it's not really a pick where I'm going, yeah, he's in really good form. But I just see him with all of the traits that he has. He's going to put it all together and, recruiters are going to love him ultimately.
Yeah, I like that. Who'd you have on your other wing?
My other wing, I went with Sam Cumming.
He was one up. Yeah, I've got two guys there for that question mark, and he was one of them.
Yeah, okay. So he's more there just death by 1,000 cuts. Like he's just going to keep picking up the ball. He's just going to keep running up and down that wing. I think he's a player that's pretty disciplined as well. Like he drops back into the hole, does that sort of defensive element of what a winger has to bring. So he's got the tank to be able to do that, and he's just going to keep picking up possessions and, creating overloads on that wing.
Yeah, I had him and Noah Chamberlain as wing options. Another Sydney boy, can play tall forward, can go out on that wing. Like I said, that tall marking option. Yeah. I know this could be a bit weak. I kind of want to. I think I want to hear your forward line and then circle back to the wingers because I think I want to nail this down. I like the four that we've mentioned. I like Bama as a selection. I think you're right. You do probably need that smaller option there, someone who is going to be, more of just pure endurance. And I do like Bama there. Honestly, I'm pretty happy to put Bama on a wing now and say we circle back to that final wing spot.
So who did you had Max King?
I had Max King there, and then I had that question mark where Cumming was up there, Chamberlain was up there. I didn't even consider Bammett as one of those options. Those were probably the two guys. Harley Barker from South Australia. I know there's a bit of hype around him as a genuine wing option as well, but someone I probably couldn't comment on too much, unfortunately, right now.
I definitely haven't seen enough of him to slot him into a wing at this stage, but those things change. We'll go to the rucks and then we'll go to the forwards and then we'll try to like juxtapose that with the wingers. I think the rucks got to be at this point. It's a one horse race. It's Cooper Duff Tytler for me.
That is pretty easily the choice. There's obviously the good guys there. There's Louis Emmett. There's Kalani White. It's probably a top three, but it's Cooper Duff Tyler, isn't it? You can't not go.
Man, I watched his round one game against the Oakley Chargers. Like it was freakish. He was up against Louis Emmett, who's a serious player. Like as a bottom ager last year, he had some really, really dominant games against some bigger bodied rucks. But Duff Tyler just monstered him from a physical point of view in the ruck. He had actually got to some stoppages, Duff Tyler, and he was playing as a mid, and one of their smaller players was going up in the ruck, and he was just picking up ground balls, booting the ball inside forward 50. He was resting forward, taking big grabs on Emmett, taking big grabs on defenders. It was a little bit like different player overall, but it was a little bit like watching what Sam Darcy's doing in the AFL at the moment. I'm too athletic, I'm too strong, I'm too good at football, and I'm going to make you look stupid if you're playing on me.
Yeah, the hype around him off those first two rounds has been insane. Just seeing it from an outsider's perspective, to see everyone unanimously go, this guy's serious, this guy's a real deal. From right now, and there's a huge big bias on it because the talent leagues had those two rounds, and the samples had probably a month now, but it's not really getting that reporting just yet. It seems like Duff Tyler and Dersmer are the two blokes people have as potential pick one options for players with such elite upside. So it's impossible to go against Duff Tyler at this point in time.
Yeah, I think that's probably just has to be the case after two, like what we've seen anyway. But we'll go to the key forwards. I have my first one probably be my lock as just probably, I mean, he can get up the ground a little bit, but I sort of like him as just a deeper sort of a forward. I've gone with Liam Heatherton.
Yeah,
I imagine he's one of
easy option. Yeah, very good player.
Just going to smash goals this season, isn't he? Like he's just going to put them away.
He's the guy I think clubs that are looking for a number one key forward, as good as Curtin has been to start, as good as we're probably going to touch on Ludovic, as good as he's been. I think if there's a club at the top who says we need a focal point, a number one key forward, I think Heatherton's there, man.
He looks like the standout at this point. And you mentioned Ludovic there, who's another one that I do have in the team. Like you had Curtin in, right? So you're probably going to be one less on these guys. I've gone with Ludovic. There are some things that I question about his game. What I think is going to be the real upside with Ludovic is the fact that when the ball hits the deck, he's kind of like one of those hybridy, medium type forwards, like a little bit like a Bailey Fritsch type when the ball hits the deck, and like he kicks goals like that, which is pretty crazy for his size because he's more, pushing 200 and he's
He's a
190.
big boy, very rangy, but big boy.
Yeah, yeah, rangy and skinny at this point. Like there's probably some comparisons there to a Cadman, but he doesn't at the moment, like he's not cleanly marking the ball,
Yeah,
which you kind of want as that like dominant key position forward, right? Like at the ball sort of it's always a bit like he does take marks, but it's always a bit of a mess, you know what I mean? Like the ball's kind of
yeah.
slipping around, double takes, juggling, that kind of thing.
You
Sometimes the
come
ball
up
hits the
against those
ground.
elite key defenders, and you're probably not nailing those ones.
Yeah, yeah, exactly. And it's a lot of it's kind of based around athleticism at the moment. So he probably needs to get a little bit stronger, obviously, which he will over time, and probably just work a little bit on his technique, his timing when he jumps at the ball as well. The other one here that I've gone with in I've put him as a key forward. He's not a key forward, obviously, but I've gone with Max King here as that
Yeah.
kind of hybrid forward. So what I sort of envision here in this make believe team that we've created is that you sort of have someone like a Max King. He's kind of getting up the ground. He can go into stoppages, play a little bit as an extra midfielder as well with that movement that we talked about. And he can sort of be the guy that's receiving it from those clearance players like we talked about Sharp. He's getting the ball a little bit on the outside and then he can step around players, open up the field, higher up the field, pick it up around that forward 50 area and kind of set up because he's really good with his ball use.
Yeah. I like that. I think Max King's a good shout. That's what I wanted to hear from you because I've got two guys here who I really want, and I feel like I'm going to have to only choose between one of them. And I was worried that Max King and Zeke Hewland were going to come in there, but I'm happy
So
to put
you've
Max
got
King as key forward.
you've got Heatherton.
I've got Heatherton, I've got Ludovic. My other one was Curtin. We've shifted him down
Ah,
back, so I feel like the key forwards were a pretty easy one. Like no one else has really taken the by storm just yet.
no. I mean, I sort of had in the mix as the ones that just missed out for me. I had Noah Chamberlain, who I think you
Yeah,
had listed on a wing as well. That sort of
yeah,
undersized key forward again. Do you play him as a third tall? Do you play him as a smaller? It's kind of a bit of a utility, I suppose. The other one's
yeah,
probably like a Tarion Armu from the Dandenong Stingrays.
yeah.
He's
He's
more of
just a
a sort.
monster, though.
He is a monster. Like he'd have to be your deepest forward, and I just couldn't justify picking him over Heatherton or Ludovic
Yeah,
at this point. And then if you did, you'd sort of have to drop one of those because your forward line would be just massive.
I
So
think it's such an easy and typecasted question mark over Tyron, where you compare him to someone like Will Gould, where it is a bit, is he really good or is he just double the strength of everyone around him? So it's something he'll have to overcome throughout this season, and I think maybe there are people who've watched heaps of him that can, debate that topic pretty well, but from the outside looking in, there's an easy argument to make of, is he good or is he just really big playing against kids? So
100%.
it
And I think
it
he might be one that has to actually play a couple of different positions as well. Like the
yeah,
recruiters are probably going to want to see what he can do up the ground a little bit. Is his endurance good enough to play as a key position forward? Because there's not many key forwards in the AFL these days that have the luxury of just sitting in the goal square. Like that real deep lying forward.
yeah,
They've got to do other stuff.
that's not the case anymore. So I'm happy with that. Ludovic, Heatherton, King. I'm pretty happy to go with that. Yeah, Ludo and
So
Heather I
so
had
where
here
does where
already.
does that leave us on the wings?
Well, are we going with Bama on one of those wings? It's just pure
I'm
endurance
happy to
runner.
go. I'm happy to go with Bammett. I like Bammett, but I can understand if you want to run somebody else. And then you had on the other wing.
It was between Cumming or Chamberlain, and I think Um, yeah, I'm happy to go Cumming again. I think South Australia's got a really good crop this year, but it's just so hard to be able to make that judgment on them convincingly. It's the same with the Allies boys because you only really see them so briefly during the season. They get that 1 month spell of academy football, and then you get the champs. Other than that, they're playing in comps that just really aren't very good
Yeah,
comparatively. Like you hear a lot of blokes. This is Quaffle, not the New South Wales comp, but blokes who are talking about that becoming a really bad league. All the good players are leaving, going to VFL. They're focusing
sure.
on these sort of things. So you see that. You'll see a lot of them play VFL footy as well throughout this year, I'm sure. But for the time being, I'm happy to go with coming out on that wing and just keep a bit more SA representation.
I like how easy it's been to get you to change your mind, Hayden.
Yeah, mate, I'm so easy with it. It's because I've just got so many question marks over so many blokes. It's. I think just because it's early in the season, I'm
Yeah.
so big on not going like all in on someone unless I really know a lot about them. So
There's no way I'm ready I mean, there's players that I think, okay, if he puts it all together, the upside's going to be too strong for people like Willem Dersma and Duff Tytler, like we talked about. But
yeah.
there's really it is really just too early. If we went back to this time in 2024 and we talked
Oh,
about the draft, we'd be having a completely different conversation to the end of the year when it was Fino Sullivan, Sam Lawler.
I'll be really excited, and I hope we do this pre-champs and just before the draft we revisit this side and change it up because there's definitely going to be. It happens every year. Some blokes, frankly, they just disappoint everyone, including themselves. And you don't want it to be any of these guys, but chances
Nah,
say that we're not going to get this entirely right at all.
100%, 100%. So we'll go to the small and medium forwards to kind of
Yeah.
kick this or finish this off. Really, do you have anything? I feel like this could be a little bit different here for us.
I've got my two WA boys, Evans and Wally. I saw both of those boys on the weekend, and they impressed me so much. I don't know if either of them would have been a consensus best on ground in their games. I think they were definitely the best players on ground, maybe not the
Yep.
best performers, but I'll start with Wally. He was just so calm on the ball. I was sitting on the boundary, maybe 20 meters from him, and I've never seen someone genuinely look so unfazed facially with just defender here, defender here, defender here. He was in the pocket and it looked like he was just so calm. He didn't look flustered at all. Dished off a handball, got into some space, got the ball, and immediately kicked and hit it to a man who was in the center of the 50. And it was those kind of moves for someone who he started in the midfield, played as the deepest forward, went up at high half forward. It was those sort of things. He set up so many chances. He couldn't be touched when he was in the midfield. He was just so clearly a class above.
And
Game
this is
one,
actually I
yeah.
just wanted to actually just ask you a quick question there because one of the things that I would probably a question mark that I had on someone like a Wes Wally was just the is he just that deep small forward or can he play the higher positions? And you're telling me right now he can.
Yeah, he was creating so many chances. Everything he did was beautiful in this game until it came to shooting at goal. Disgusting. It was so underwhelming. He had 5 shots, 2 behinds, 3 out on the full.
Wow. So is that do you think that's mental or do you think that's
I th-
technique or
I think maybe it was maybe a little bit of technique. It was an unbelievably windy day. Every quarter, the wind changed directions. All football that got played, I went and not to say that amateur reserves is a good comparison, but I went and played football straight after that, and it was low scoring affairs, inaccurate. Every game that I saw that got played that week,
and Hayden,
it
if
was
you
tough.
can't do it, then how's he supposed to do it?
Exactly. I had a set shot from 30 meters out that I missed, so I can't hate on Wes Wally for that. So, I think it was a tough day, and it's not really in character for him. And even if it is, I think that's probably the easiest part of the game to fix: goal kicking, like just some set shots. They were mostly
Well,
set shots.
it reminds me a little bit last year if there was a lot of chat around Isaac Kako through the season
Yeah.
because in the talent, for whatever reason, in the talent league, he was just missing chances. I think he kicked for the season like 19 goals, 38. He had at one point on his radar, so he's just generating bulk shots, but he wasn't finishing them. And now he's gone into the AFL level. And what he did at Champs as well, he was a really clinical player. He looks like a really clinical player now. So sometimes it can just be these guys are they're playing on worse grounds. Like
Yeah.
they're playing with wind affected games, all of those sorts of things. So there's a lot that goes into it. I'd imagine it's something that he can probably clean up.
It's an easy fix, I think. But I've got him in there, and Kobe. Kobe played again in midfield and forward split. He was so assertive, and so athletic. Like he was so sharp, and again, unfazed, looked good. Took both of them took some really good overhead marks for players that are going to play a small forward role, but they're both in the mid 180s, mid to high 180s. Um, and yeah, both have sort of midfield traits that Kobe was sort of Shea Bolton like. There was a lot to like about it. When he gets the ball in midfield, his immediate thought is aggression, take on the game. He had one moment where he was on the wing and he just kept going after it. Couldn't get a clean possession of the ball, but still managed to gain 30 or 40 meters with tapping it forward, tapping it to a teammate, tapped it to one of their players, tackled him, got up, knocked it forward again, and just did that until there was a stoppage 30 meters up. So even when he can't get a clean possession, he's still making that dangerous impact. But I don't know if it was a fitness issue or a mental issue, but his defensive impact just was not there in the midfield or as a forward.
I let's not be too harsh about defensive efforts because
Yeah.
none of these guys love a
No.
defensive effort when they're playing in their top age year. It's all about the offense. You've pretty much sold me on Kobe Evans there.
Yeah.
I had him really close to this team, and in a sort of hypothetical interchange, he was on my interchange. I saw the clips from his game. I haven't watched the whole game back or anything like that, and I was really impressed with what I saw. Again, you talk about those like zooming in with the shots. I didn't really get to see it close up. And I think
Yeah.
sometimes players like that move, you mentioned he moved like Shea Bolton, you kind of need to be at the ground sometimes to be able to feel it.
Yeah, it's one of those
Does
things
that make
where,
sense?
yeah, it was just like the first three steps were gliding. He had a lot of defensive pressure. It was
Yeah.
almost a semi-tag going on at stoppages. But as the game went on, he really began to shake that. Took a really nice overhead mark from a hospital ball as well. So someone who can probably play a taller forward role, a target forward role. So both of those guys can, which I really like to see from them. And then that third one, I had a question mark, but the fact we don't have Zeke Euland in this side yet makes me say it probably needs to be Zeke Euland.
So I do have Zeke Ullin. And the reason for it, I think at 178 centimeters at AFL level, he's
Yeah.
probably not playing midfield. I'm not saying that he can't go through there at times, but it's unlikely that he's going to be a 70-80% centre bounce midfielder, you know what I mean? So I thought you could slot him into a half forward flank. He could be a bit of what maybe Colby McKercher is to the Kangaroos this season, where he just picks up the ball, he comes up to stoppage as that high half forward. He's got the tank to be able to do it. We know that because he plays midfield. And then he's got all that craft and creativity at delivering the ball inside 50, and it's going to give you pretty much you're going to be able to get less entries and get more from those entries with a player like Zeke Uland picking up the ball high for you.
Yeah, everything you just said about Zeke, you can't really add much more to. He's such a high upside player, and I think not so much a player comparison, but just a very general comparison. Nick Watson a couple of years ago, he's one of those players where you have everything he has, and you add 10 centimeters to it. He's probably not the exact same player. He probably loses a bit of his athleticism, but let's say he keeps all of that, you add 10 centimeters on, you're saying this guy's probably our pick one. Like, this guy's probably the best player in the draft.
100%, 100%. And like, even I say that he's too small to play centre bounce midfield. He's such a little like hard ass player as well. Like
Yeah,
he gets in and under. He's got that physicality to him as well. He looks like a bit like a little bastard, doesn't he? Like you
he
wouldn't want
does.
to.
It's
You
Lockie
wouldn't want to
Neal,
take
it's
him
Errol
on.
Goulden, it's those kind of guys who we're seeing just they're sharp, they're quick. They want to get like players want to give him the ball because they're going to change the game. So someone that honestly I think stiff to be in a forward pocket in this side, but such an easy one where he can play on any third. Let's put him in a forward pocket so he can fit some other guys in. I'm really happy with Zeke Euland. From the sounds of it, it sounds like you want Kobe Evans in there. Do you have any other guys you were sort of aiming at?
I'd 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 love, but you you had me when you said he plays like Shea Bolton, and it was Shea
Yeah, I
Bolton
did. I
like.
did see that in the
I'm in.
eyes. I saw that in the eyes.
I'd
I'm putting Evans in there. I'm putting Yuland in there. Have I convinced you with Wally, or is there someone else you're after?
Yeah, so the other player that I want to add into this mix here in the forward line, and probably the two players that I'm going to talk about here, I'm not necessarily sold on, and I feel like I've got a lot going my way this time, but Dylan Patterson has to have a conversation. Gold Coast Academy player, played in that under 18 futures game on grand final day last year, and I just thought he was so clean. He hit the ball at speed. He probably played actually between like a half-back role, a little bit through the midfield, but he's just one of those players that has that like beautiful agility, sort of glides across the field, opens up play really well. He's a high meters game player, which I like. He's a high score involvement player. And another one that's super creative. And if you add him into that mix of, we talked about Kobe Evans, Zeke Orland, those guys with a lot of quality on the ball, picking up the ball high up the field, I think you're just going to have a lot of headaches for the opposition and just a lot of talent kicking around the offensive part of the ground. I think Dylan Patterson really brings that. But we are getting to a stage here where there's a lot of these small forwards and you can talk about them in the same light because they've all got that massive upside. They're really highly skilled players. They move really well. So where do you sit on Dylan Patterson, I suppose, is the first question here.
Yeah, I really rate Dylan Patterson. There was two other guys I had in there. I have a feeling the other one might be who you mentioned next, but I'd like to, yeah, we'll go through Patterson first. But yeah, he's someone who, more of a mid forward from his own words. He really wants to play, bulk midfield minutes, which Evans and Wally do as well. But I think they're more forward midfielders than midfielder forwards.
Yep.
Yeah, he's got a lot of great upside, and that's the case with all small forwards. Really, it is a real upside game, and yeah, a lot of it does come down to, I guess, execution. You think about someone like Malachi Champion last year, who elite upside, but probably didn't have like wasn't very prolific in his draft year. So it is something that easy sometimes that can sort of get a player to slide down the rankings and all that, but. I'd be happy to put Patterson in there. You said you got one other guy though, yeah?
I do. I think it's a good, like an interesting topic that you just kind of brought up there, though, because it sort of reminds me. I think what recruiters are looking for the most with these forwards now are guys that can play up the ground as well.
Yeah.
So if need be, they have the ability to be able to play as that sort of higher forward, come up to stoppage and those sorts of things. I think that's probably what hurt a player like Malachi Champion. I think most of the guys we're talking about here have that ability and that endurance to be able to play that role. The guy that I have is perhaps what he's shown so far is a little bit more of that kind of fox in the box, kind of closer to goal guy.
Yeah.
But he definitely does have that midfield capability and has played there for the Calder Cannons. I'm talking about Hussein El Akar, 171 centimeters. So he's very small, but
Yeah.
he's very stocky and very powerful. And he's able to kind of do a lot of the things that Isaac Kako was doing last year, like just being able to pretty much off one step, just kind of explode through a tackle, open up a piece of space inside forward 50 and just snap the goal. I think he's kicked 7 across the first 2 weeks of the Coates Talent League against pretty good opposition, good opponents playing on him. So I'm excited about this guy. I watched him in the back end of 2024 where he's playing as a bottom major and he looked just as strong and as powerful then. He looks like he's got himself a little bit fitter this season. So the endurance side of his game looks like it's coming in as well. I think we're going to see more midfield minutes. So he's one that I liked in this balance. Again, you talk about Uland and Patterson who can play that high forward and then Hussein's a little bit closer to goal.
That argument's pretty I think it sort of sold me on Alakjar a bit. I think for, I guess, versatility and, the blend of this side, we got Evans and Yulin, who Yulin can play absolutely anywhere in the ground. Evans is that high half forward, I think. I don't think we're going to really see him as a deep forward, where Wally we did. Wally we're probably going to see in both roles as a deep forward and as a high half forward. I'd probably say for me it's between Wally and Hussein. I'm pretty happy to go with Hussein, though. I think Wally's going to have a really good year, and I think, I'll let his footy do the talking for him more than I will because what I saw on the weekend, I was so impressed. But what we don't really have there is someone who's been kicking bags of goals so far, and Huss has been doing that, so I'm happy to put him in there.
I appreciate that one. And I'm happy to have him in the team. A couple of other guys that I sort of considered for those positions. Again, you look at it from a high forward point of view. You mentioned Kobe Evans there. I think the thing with Kobe Evans that's awesome for this team is he can actually genuinely be a midfield rotation.
Yeah.
So you're going to get...
Yeah.
Yeah, you could throw like a Dersma, a Max King in the forward line and go into the midfield as well. So it's really modular. I kind of like that. Adam Swade is a guy, and it's funny, I didn't mention on Hussein there off the top that he's actually an Essendon NGA player. So they're going to have first dibs on him and the opportunity to draft him. And I think he looks like a top 20 pick. Adam Swade's another Essendon NGA, and he's been doing great things. Had a knee injury last year, so didn't really get to he wasn't really in the draft conversation coming into this season. I think he's had the most ranking points of any player in the Coates Talent League across the first 2 weeks. He's racking up the peel and kicking big goals for the Calder Cannon. So they look frightening this season. Noah Hibbins-Hargraves, bit of a high forward / midfielder. I don't know if you know much about him, Hayden.
Yeah, well, I thought he was more of that sort of outside winger player who can go as that tall forward. Another one who I've heard more than I've seen has probably had a bit of an underwhelming start where you probably haven't seen the absolute best out of him yet. But everything we're saying is off the back of 2 weeks of Coates League, 1 week of Waffle, and a month of Sandford that we haven't really seen. So it's probably the most amateur opinion that we could dish out, but I'm pretty happy with what we've got so far. I think from what we've seen of these players, I really like the blend that we've gone for, both positionally, role-wise, and in terms of we've got guys representing across all of Australia. I'd look at that back line and I look at those key defenders and, a little bit of me thinks, okay. But other than that, what we've dished up with this side, I'm pretty happy with all round.
But you know what? Like, if you went back to this time last year in the draft, where would Alex Tyree have been? I mean, he ends up being the top guy. Even someone like a Toby Travalia.
Yeah.
Like he was around the mark, but he wasn't really in that top echelon of player. Isaac Kako, probably the same. He never made the academy side, nor did Travalia or Tyree.
Was Isaac Kako not in the academy side?
No, he missed out.
That's outrageous.
Yeah. I mean, one that sort of, it reminds me a little bit from this season is probably a Max King, who's not in the academy side either. So the academy side will actually kick off this week as well. They play the Richmond VFL side on Sunday, so I'm going to get down for that. I'm pretty excited for it. I did want to mention just one other small forward to keep an eye on for this season is Lockie Doverston.
Yeah.
Another Eastern Rangers boy. He sort of gives me vibes of Nick Watson. Don't want to put those kind of lofty expectations on his head, but he's a pretty physical little small forward, just gets in the opposition's face and kicks goals. And Jamie Gilchrist, I watched that game at the weekend too. He's more of a medium type forward, an athletic type forward, probably in the mould of someone like a Max King or a Noah Chamberlain, that type of player, and really liked what he did as well. But I'm pretty happy with this team, Hayden.
I like what we've done, so I'll go over it. I've got it written here. I don't know if you were writing it out as we went, but that back six, Curtin, Hay, Taylor as those three bigs down back. I think Curtin and Taylor I do really like. I liked what you had to say about Taylor in terms of getting that blend of a sort of more medium-sized defender in there. Curtin I did want forward, but I think for probably the blend of this side, someone's going to make a sacrifice. Sorry, Cody, it has to be you. And Hay is someone that I think just sort of fits the bill. Kalani White maybe could have gone there, but at the same time, if Hay's going in there, if we see Hay down back, one of those ones where 3 months from now could look back on this and think that was a ridiculous call from us, or we can go, wow, deal, great shout, that was unbelievable from you. So fingers crossed for the latter.
That's what we do, Hayden. That's what we do.
Make the big shouts. We've got Candy, Carmichael, Lindsay as our mediums. Great blend again.
I like that.
Yeah, and we've just represented everything there. We've got Tassie, we got Sydney, we got Adelaide, got 2 Vic boys, a West Aussie. This is as versatile as it gets. Babbitt coming on the wings was not what I had coming into this, but you've changed my mind pretty easily. There's not many people I listen to in the draft conversation and probably take their opinion so strongly. Everything you said last year, every time you said something, I don't know if it's the way you talk, I don't know if it's your eyes, Dill, but I just fall for everything you say so easily.
We just love each other. I think that's where it stems from.
There is a bit of that. Duff Tyler was probably the easiest one in the whole side. Like, that was always happening. Dersma, Sharp, Rodriguez, and great midfield blends. Like, I'm so interested to see what midfield does get rolled out for this academy game.
I'm so excited. I really hope they don't try to just stick Dersma on a flank.
Yeah.
Like I really want to see them just unleash him and just give him a little bit of a chance to play that role.
Yeah, you've got to have those guys. Probably for the best that Hewland isn't playing in terms of getting to see other guys.
True.
Newland's obviously got those back injuries. Would have loved to have seen Newland play, but yeah, it gives other guys a chance. Across the forwards, we landed on Ludo, Heatherton, Max King.
I love that.
Yeah, I do as well. Ludo and Heatherton seemed pretty obvious. It was always going to happen.
Yep.
Without Curtin there, I'm happy with Max King. Again, probably with Curtin there, it would have just been a bit too tall, a bit too, kick it to me, kick it to me. So I like Max King as a more versatile option. Evans and Newland as those half forward flankers, guys we're going to get up the ground, do a bit with it, get back inside 50 and be dangerous options. And then Hassel Aksher at forward pocket is a great shout. He's been to such a hot start. And I think the only part of me that doesn't like it is just a part of me that thinks surely Calder aren't just going to dish up two Essendon and NGA elite small forwards in back-to-back drafts. And the thing is, they might dish up three. So
Yeah. Yeah.
it's honestly just me being a little bit of a hater for the Essendon NGA and the Calder Cannons. But yeah, I really like that side that we've landed on. I think few stiff guys. I really would have liked to have Dean Annabelle in there, but sorry, Dan.
Oh, there's so many mids that are super stiff.
Yeah.
Like you look at like Ollie Greaves,
Yeah.
Riley Onley, Bo Adensel, who was like best on ground in that under 17s game. Tommy McGuan, Collingwood father son.
Matt Laray or Laray from South Australia is another one similar to Lawler. I don't think he's had a full footy preseason yet because he's been playing cricket in the summer. So one of those guys who, you don't really think about it, where the guy hasn't had a full football preseason. Like he's just put himself at such a distinct disadvantage, and he's still got his name up there. So someone that I'm really excited to see over the course of this year.
And he's probably one that could end up playing as like a tall utility as well, like a winger, something like that.
Yeah. But
and you got like Jevon Philippou from SA as well. Sam Swadling. You know a bit more about him.
I didn't see Sam on the weekend. Did get 22 touches. West Perth really went up there. West Australia is going to have an interesting midfield this year. Fred's right there, but how the rest of that forms is going to be interesting. But yeah, sort of one of those mid-forward Sam from all reports. So he's someone I'm definitely keen to watch a few times, and hopefully we do get to see him perform. But yeah, there's always going to be really stiff guys here. I think Noah Chamberlain, Dill Patterson, some that are stiff. Kalani White's probably up there as one of the most stiff, as just a great option. I think when we start seeing the academy play and maybe he starts swinging to the Gold Coast VFL side, I think he's someone who'll probably come into this side over the course of this season.
Love that.